Golden Black Live, the last day of January. And Elliot Bloom is our guest, and we'll talk about what's ahead for Purdue basketball in February. It would be an interesting month. It always is.
Always
correct?
is, yeah.
Always is, doesn't matter where you are. And we'll also, segment 2, Brian Newbert will join us. He's just back from availability today. We'll hit some more hoops, a little bit of football recruiting, and Tom Dienhart will join us in segment 3. And Tom will talk Super Bowl and Purdue football, etc., as we go through our January 31st edition. Thank our sponsors, XXX, on the hill but on the level of Purdue tradition since 29, not 25, and State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com, and Hilton Garden Inn when tomorrow's a big day, State HDI tonight. Elliot, we always have good conversations, not all suitable for basketball podcasts or, basketball podcast or live streams, but you guys, you're the team you happen to be associated with and have been for a long time is going through a challenging and interesting topsy-turvy season. But I guess the first question is, if you ever seen a Big Ten in all your years of watching this, is as level as it's been, and has there ever really been anything quite like this in your view?
Probably the most, safe to say, the most unique year in the Big Ten that I've been a part of for a lot of reasons. I look at certain bracketologies that are out there.
Yeah.
I think everybody does. In my opinion, like Joe Lunardi's the gold standard,
Yeah.
and I think
Got
the research
still,
kind
right?
of bears that out. But I saw today, not necessarily just with us, but 12 teams from the Big Ten are going to the tournament, according to him, if the season ended today. Incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be a record.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that in May, when the coaches got together and talked about the need to, a couple years ago, go to 20 games,
Yeah.
but also then just challenge each other with upgrading the schedules, this was the vision. And to see the vision bear fruit so quickly, I don't think anybody would have foreseen that. And I'm not sure it's all a reflection of that. Other factors come into it with what's going on in different leagues and different teams, but certainly the emphasis on upgrading everyone's non-conference schedule seems to be paying dividends right now for everybody in the league. That, number one, is crazy, that 12 teams could be in the field. Second, the parity, as you mentioned, is probably at an all-time high. The lack of one standout team, I think the highest seeded team, currently is kind of a 3 seed if Michigan State ends up, staying where they're at. Mm-hmm. But they have several tough games down the stretch, as everybody does. Yeah. The third thing that I think really stands out is the home court advantage has been so prominent. I think a few weeks, or the highest home court advantage in the last, 25 years was, I believe, like 2004, the Mountain West had like a 77% winning percentage, which was kind of the high water mark. And we're trending in that area to eclipse that. So that's another crazy thing. And probably the last thing that has popped up here over the last couple weeks has been that we've seen a lot of suspensions, leaves, defections.
Yeah.
Successful teams, tournament teams that are losing pieces. Suspending players, losing pieces of their team. Wisconsin with King leaving, and the freshman at Ohio State taking a little leave. Announcing it yesterday. A lot going on. It seems like the center of the center of the college basketball universe is the Big Ten, and some years it's like that, but this year it just really seems like everybody nationally continues to talk about this league, and. We wish we were a little bit higher up in the standings, but, it could be worse. I mean, we're in the thick of it, and we still have attainable goals, ahead of us. So.
Yeah. You look at that, and you look at you're halfway through the conference schedule. You've now seen just about everybody. That's not exactly true, but certainly teams that you're going to run across. But how much, the month of February has always been such a month where teams either go one direction or the other, or it seems that that's the basis for that. How do you look at your situation going into that month? I mean, obviously a tough loss on Tuesday, but there have been good, and then there's been challenges, and that, I guess, is the definition of coaching in the Big Ten.
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster, and it's been a lot of little roller coasters.
Yeah.
We have roller coasters within a game. We have roller coasters during a week. We've had roller coasters in a month. And I think going into this year, we had a lot of unknowns. We knew that. We knew that some of the stable rocks that we've had over the previous years in terms of senior leadership, in terms of just leadership overall, this team didn't have those elements. You know, the seniors we've had, you know, Tommy Luce has been here 4 years,
Yeah.
but other than that, you know, Evan's been here 2 years and Jihad's been here 1 year. So you haven't had those seniors that have been a staple of the program for 3-4 years. And that plays a part of it. A lot of new faces, a lot of new guys coming in, and a lot of different pieces that, you know, need to get sorted out. And the consistency piece is probably the most frustrating part of what we have done to date and what we'll go through here in the next, you know, 6 weeks of the regular season. Within a game, sometimes a game will start, and, you know, I don't know what Jihad Proctor did differently leading up
Yeah.
to Rutgers that allowed him to play well in that game.
Yeah.
If we knew it,
Yeah.
we'd repeat it.
Yeah.
I don't know what other guys have done to maybe not play as well. We go back and look at everything. Is it a matchup thing? Is it a scheming thing? Is it the sets we're calling that game? You know, what could it be? Is it the preparation? There's not a common denominator, and that's frustrating. You know, I talked to Coach Painter last night about it. We were just kind of talking about trying to find those different things that we could pull that have been successful, put them together, and try to do that going forward. But there's no common theme that we can find. So it's an ongoing process. You just need to keep trying to plug away. And the hope is, you know, when we're at home, we'll have 4, 5, 6, 7 guys all show up, do their thing, and the results, you know, happen. We're still looking for that on the road. You know, we'll have a couple guys here and there, but we need more. You need to have 5, 6 guys on the road clicking, and when you do that, you can go win at places like Rutgers. And I got to say, tip of the cap to Rutgers. That's as good an environment as we've seen the RAC since they've been in the league. That place was really rocking. They've done a great job. They're 15-0 at home this year. So, you know, it's not like we're walking into places that a lot of people have had success. It's still a daunting task, but it's one that we feel we can get it done if we get just a little bit more consistency out of the guys.
What about from a practice standpoint? What can you do to combat? You know, you've shot so poorly away from home, and for the most part at home, you've shot the ball very well. I mean, from a practice standpoint, how do you simulate that, or is it just a case you have to move forward and just kind of not dwell on it, or do you dwell on it and say, you know, here's what we have to do. We got to value each possession, that extra pass. How have you looked at that?
Yeah, I think Coach would say take better shots.
Yeah.
You know, Coach would say, are they contested threes or are they wide open threes? Are they, you know, pull-ups or are they layups? Those are the kind of things that we would look at. And, you know, the more layups and wide open rhythm threes we can get, the better our percentages will bear out. It's the nights when you're shooting contested threes quickly in the beginning of a shot clock, when you're shooting shots over double teams, or shots that you don't practice. Mm-hmm. Those are the shots that you want back, and those are considered bad shots. And so that's what we need to continue to do. You need to continue to limit to work those. Now, at the same time, there's another team out there getting you to take those shots. Yeah. So we've seen, how many times have we seen teams come into Mackey and shoot? Our fan base and our staff, we don't know their teams as well, but we know what certain guys can do. And we come in and see a guy shoot a pull-up in Mackey. We've never seen him on film shoot a pull-up, and we're like, oh, there we go. Yeah. Got him to do what we wanted. Yeah. So there's another team at play in all this, trying to get you to do things that you're not accustomed to. But on the road, I think it's taking good shots, but then also, as you said, limiting your turnovers. And if we can just find a way to get off to good starts. Yeah. I mean, everybody watching here knows that, you know, we've had a series of games where we just start off poorly. And the other night we were up 5-2 at Rutgers, and I thought, okay, we're okay. We're okay. Yeah. Hit a 3 here. We're good. Let's get back, get set. And then in the blink of an eye, it's 13-5. Yeah. And if you take those first 4-minute segments of some of those games, the Maryland game, the Illinois game, the Rutgers game, and if you take those away, we outplay teams the remaining 36 minutes, but obviously a game's 40 minutes. So we've got to find a way to get off to better starts.
Yeah, and I really misspoke because there are 4 teams in the Final 10 that you haven't seen yet: Penn State, Iowa, Ohio State, Indiana, are all teams that you haven't faced. And obviously Penn State, another team that's made this big turnaround. It just flipped the complete script between Illinois, Penn State, Rutgers, and now these are three of the best teams in the league.
Yeah, teams that are really playing well that were picked probably towards the bottom by the media in the preseason. And I think all of us felt like those teams would all be very good this year.
Yeah.
I didn't know if they would be tournament teams, but I thought certainly the pieces were in place for them to have good seasons. Iowa's playing really well. Maryland is certainly playing well. They were expected to play well. Illinois is towards the top and certainly has made a big jump this year and have a lot of talent on that roster. It's kind of, I guess the way I look at it going down the stretch here is Michigan State, Maryland, and Illinois have kind of started to separate themselves a little bit, and then there's a huge blob in the middle. And what shakes out of there, if the home teams hold serve over these next 10 games, you have the potential to finish the regular season with 8 teams within one game of each other.
Yeah.
And there's a massive block of teams that are going to be 11-9, 10-10, 9-11. So for us, it's taking care of business in Mackey, and then it's trying to find 2 or 3 road games to try to get. And I think if you look at our schedule and somebody said, look, Purdue's going to get 2 road games out of over these next 10 games overall, I don't think anybody would look at you crazy.
Yeah.
They're certainly all challenging games, but they're games that we have a chance to win.
Yeah, you got 10 games left. There's only one game that would probably be looked at as a bad loss by the NCAA, and that is going to be your next your challenge tomorrow night in Northwestern, and a team that has had its ups and downs, and certainly got hammered by Michigan State, but has played at times relatively well at home. They did beat Nebraska at home. What do you see in that game? And a team that you kind of struggled with in Mackey way back in December.
Right. They came in and played well here in Mackey. Had some guys that had really good nights here.
Yeah.
Made some shots. I think getting off to a good start first and foremost.
Yeah.
If you can get off to a good start, I think it gives our guys a little bit of confidence. And then it's just a matter of sticking with the game plan for 40 minutes, and hopefully, like I said, instead of 2-3 guys showing up with that mentality, you have 5, 6, 7 guys. And if that happens, you feel pretty good about your chances up there. But, I could do without the 9 o'clock Eastern tip
I know.
start in.
Mr. Newbert, who Brian who just came in the studio, I think he could do without it as well. But yes, that's nuts. 9 o'clock Eastern, but it's only 8 o'clock there. So,
8 o'clock there. Well, it'll only be about 3 in the morning when we get home.
Yeah. It's that's a crazy start time, and it will be a fascinating. If you didn't have any dogs in the hunt, so to speak, it'd be fun to sit back and watch and see what happens, and maybe you just can go any direction here, and you never know what's going to shake out from that standpoint.
Yeah, and this is a game where we've been close in terms of getting it down to a possession game. At Maryland, at Rutgers.
Sure.
I think the guys have seen enough of what they can do well to get a little bit in their minds of like, okay, we see the blueprint a little bit. So now it's just a matter of going out and, like I said, getting off to a good start and trying to do it for 40 minutes. And if that's the case, the way the schedule lays out, you come back home, and now if you can string a couple together, does that start to change the mentality? You remember last year we were on a roller coaster ride, and then we went to Wisconsin and broke through in an overtime game, and it kind of lit a fire, and we didn't look back. And I'm certainly not suggesting that a win Saturday is going to lead to 10 in a row, but it can change a team's mindset. And when you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-old minds, confidence is a wonderful thing, and it can lead to some really good things for a team.
Yeah. Your day job is also obviously director of operations, basketball operations, and just tell our viewers about what that entails. We kind of go through. You do any number of things on a daily basis for this basketball program, but some of the things you're focusing now as you look ahead, because you're the one that has to kind of fly the jet too, not only from logistics, but also how this program is going to move forward from that type of standard.
Well, appreciate you dropping a Gene Katieism with
fly the jet. Yep.
Fly jet and think ahead. That was one of Coach Katie's famous sayings.
Fly the jet.
And yeah, it's true. The way I describe my job to people is I'm the coach that doesn't recruit off campus and doesn't actually coach on the floor. And anything that doesn't involve anything else besides the recruiting and the X's and O's part, I usually will handle. So right now, a lot of getting the travel plans all done for the rest of the year, looking at postseason, plans and that sort of thing, and then starting to look ahead for next year, looking at, an overall program, from an overall program viewpoint, facility-wise, where are we at? What's our next thing that we have on the horizon that we need to tackle, and what do we need to address? And then as soon as this season's over, right in the spring in April, we'll meet with marketing and we'll meet with everybody, and we'll be talking about 2020, 21 and that season. We have a foreign trip coming up this summer where we'll spend about 13 days in Europe. We'll get 10 practices in preparation for that trip. Looking at our 3 incoming freshmen for next year and starting to look at, making sure they're applied to Purdue, accepted, all the paperwork's in, everything like that is squared away so that those guys can get here in June and we can start our next season. It'll be here in the blink of an eye. So I'm working on that stuff ahead. I'm working on the 2020-21 schedule right now, non-conference schedule. We know where we go in the Big Ten. We don't know dates or anything like that. We won't know that till August, but working on solidifying the non-conference opponents. And so all that kind of stuff is kind of the things that I'm looking at now for future years. And then working on scheduling down the road, trying to figure out one of the big questions we have in the league this year, obviously with the new commissioner coming on board, is what's the future of the Gavitt games? We have a home Gavitt game this coming season in Mackey. We don't know who the opponent is. We don't know the date yet, but we'll have somebody from the Big East coming to Mackey, which is great. And we like the Gavitt games. It's worked out really well. But the Gavitt games is contractually up in a couple years. So then looking ahead to figuring out, is that something that's going to be extended going forward? What's the commissioner's views on that? Those are kind of the big overarching questions that the Big Ten will address in May at their meetings and that kind of thing. So.
And obviously, there's been a lot made of Big Ten basketball in terms of ramping up that schedule, and it seems like I know Matt Painter and others have said that's kind of the reason why the league maybe is the way it is. And
right.
So, is that make it a bigger challenge too in terms of in terms of what options you have out there, and obviously you have games that you automatically are part of as well.
Yeah, and I get this question a lot in terms of scheduling. People will question why we play certain teams. And, do we look at RPI, that kind of thing? The RPI stuff's kind of out the window. You look at the net rating now, which is just a more updated version of the RPI. And, we look at all those things. But at the end of the day, sometimes a date comes down to who's available and who you can get. And quite frankly, there might not be as much difference between a RPI team that's 180 and 167. So you get what team could fit your date. In terms of it being more challenging because you're playing better competition, I like it. I'm all for it. I think it's a win for everybody. It's a win for our fans. It's a win for attendance, for environments, for the atmosphere in Mackey, to prepare your team for Big Ten. I think it's a plus all the way around. What can be difficult is if we're tied into the Gavitt games, the ACC Big Ten Challenge, the Crossroads. We go to an exempt event. We go to a tournament around Thanksgiving usually. If you put in all those pieces in the calendar, that only leaves a couple pockets for potential.
With 20 conference games.
Yeah.
Right.
So now you take out 2 dates in December, which used to be prime windows to go play a Texas or West Virginia or some teams we've done in the past. So when you take out those prime dates, okay, now where do I go? Like this year we had to stick Texas towards the beginning of the schedule. Is that an ideal place to play Texas? Probably not. But when else are you going to play them? We want to play them when our students are there. So another window would be around the holiday, but is a Texas coming in on December 29th? You'd like to have the students around for that. So those are the kind of things that you juggle with that. But it's a puzzle no matter what you do. I don't know if trying to find better opponents makes it any easier or more difficult. I prefer playing teams of higher caliber because I think it's, like I said earlier, it's a kind of a win-win for everybody.
One thing I noticed, we've talked about, it's probably every year we've had you on the show, it's just the atmosphere in Mackey Arena, and obviously not it's something you pay attention to in terms of the program. But I thought one thing that was interesting in the Wisconsin game, after a disappointing game on Tuesday against Illinois and kind of a downer in the second half, that crowd that night was really one of the best I've seen of a non-Indiana or Michigan State. It might have even been up to that level. Maybe it was Friday night. That might have been part of it. But talk about, just what's been done to really make, Mackey Arena is becoming, maybe it always has been, but it's even more and more becoming that almost the Wrigley Field of Big Ten basketball.
Yeah.
It's a place it's a destination, and that's unique.
You and I have talked about this. You've seen a lot of games in Mackey. And I'm glad you brought that up, because Friday night when we came down the ramp before the game, as a staff, I don't know how the other staff members feel. I feel, having lost to Illinois, I feel guilty. Like, we walked down, and I want to hang my head a little bit, because I feel bad. I feel like we let 14,000 plus people down, and more than that watched, and our fans out there. So I carry a little guilt going into that game. And then when you hear that they're like, hey, we're good, let's go. Like, it's go time. It's a boost, man. It's a V8 shot. I mean, it's a adrenaline rush. I think what we've created, and certainly a lot of it is due to the success and our guys playing the way they have over the last 4 or 5 years. 2 Big Ten titles in 3 years certainly doesn't hurt. Exciting players, big name players. The 4 guys that composed that senior class 2 years ago. Biggie before them, Carson after them, Klein, Grady. All those guys that just Purdue guys, superstars. We've had a little bit of everything. It's all been the product's been great, but certainly I think, and hats off to our marketing team and our promotions staff and a lot of people in Mackey and in the athletics department that help keep it that way. I feel like with every game we've got it to a point where if you're on the fence about going to Mackey on a Wednesday night against whoever, I'd like to think that in the back of your mind's like, man, I could give these to my buddy and let him go, but I don't want to miss it. I don't know what I'm going to miss. And to me, that's where we should be. That's the ultimate goal, is to try to get it to where people feel like if they miss a night, they're missing something. And I think we've got to that spot. Friday night, I was talking to Mike Bobinski at practice a couple of days ago, and he said, I don't know if you paid attention when you were in the huddle. He goes, but when I was out there with Robbie Hummel and we gave him his USA Basketball Award, he said that ovation was incredible. And he said, and I've been some places, and I don't know where else you get that. And those kind of things are so big. They're big for us in the middle of that game and our guys playing with energy and playing at a high level. They're big for recruiting, because there's recruits that come to the game a lot that are young guys, older guys. There might be future recruits sitting there that are 7 years old that came with their dad, and you never know. They're big for, like, every time we do the T-shirt game on national TV, we get so much feedback from that. We'll get comments from marketing people at other schools, like, how did you guys do this? Like, our marketing guys get inundated a lot with questions like that. And I might have mentioned this before, and it might have been on this show, but a few years ago, one of my colleagues at Ohio State said that when they were kind of trying to transform the Schottenstein Center, Value City, whatever they're calling it now, he said we sat around a table and we all threw out ideas of how do we make this environment better. And he said the consensus was we need to get like Mackey. And that's as good a compliment as you're going to get, because in our league, obviously, there's a lot of good venues, but I'd put Mackey against not only anybody in our league, but anybody nationally. And we just got to keep doing our part and getting good players and coaching them up. And if the fans keep doing their part, we're going to have a lot more enjoyable evenings in the future.
All right. Well, we're going to let Elliot get back to his day job and night job as well. We'll have our political podcast on some other time. We have fun talking about that. And then also, obviously, you can see Elliot's work more in the off season, but they do it throughout the Boiler Ball podcast. Excellent stuff. One of my favorite ones of all time, Bill Barbarian. You guys did a great job with that. My former coach, you guys brought out the personality of a 95-year-old man was fantastic, and it's well worth listening to as well. Crazy. What does it have a guy talk about his memories? It's amazing.
We have a blast doing them. I wish I could do more. I wish my schedule
Yeah.
permitted me to do, a couple a week, to be honest. But we're going to continue to do them. And, if anybody's got ideas out there, look my email address up online, shoot me an email. If you haven't listened to them, we'd love to have you do that. We've got a lot of former players on there, a lot of big names in the basketball world. They're all archived on PurdueSports.com. One thing I did want to mention.
Yes, sir.
We have we'll have our basketball reunion this coming summer with our alumni game. So August 1st, circle your calendars now, make your plans. We'll have alumni back, but also we'll have an inter-squad scrimmage as we prepare for our European trip, which I referenced earlier. So that'll be one of those days where we'll have a doubleheader in Mackey on August 1st, and the alumni will get after it first, and then our inter-squad game will be after that. And of course, that'll be everybody's first chance to see the guys that we've signed, Jaden Ivey, Ethan Morton, Zach Eady, and then obviously Brandon Newman and Mason Gillis will come off their redshirt years and be able to play. So you'll be a chance to see some new guys out there on the floor, and will probably be a really special day. So.
All right, mark your calendars. It'll be guaranteed to be only 75 degrees for that day. So it'll be perfect. We've been lucky at least last couple.
Yes, we have.
We've some that haven't, but
yeah, absolutely.
That is for sure. Well, good luck this weekend
Thank
during
you.
your trip to Evanston, and we'll look forward to watching as we always do. We'll take a short break, bring in Brian Newbert, who just got back from availability, and we'll talk about something he's likes to talk about, and that's Purdue basketball, though, and look forward to doing that. And then Tom Dienhart will join us on the back end of the show. So take a 2-minute break. We'll see you in a couple minutes on Gold and Black Live.